It's already second Sunday of Advent, and time keeps skipping by. Before we know it, Christmas will be upon us. And I always think about that because I'm confronted always with that awareness about how time quickly goes by. When I had gone home last year, I saw a young woman with 3 little kids at the cathedral church because I was there for a ceremony. And she came and she was trying to greet me, and I knew she was kind of familiar, but I didn't know who she was. It turns out that I taught her when she was in junior high school. And I said, oh Lord, this is... But the thing with time is you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to what is going on with you. Because before you know it, it is over. And so as Christians, as we travel through the seasons, which is one of my favorite reasons of being Catholic, we're so organized, everything in its own time. We go into Advent, to Christmastide, Epiphany, then we go into Lent, and then we go to Easter, regular seasons. Then we have celebrations in between, all of them built around helping us to lift up our hearts and to be aware of God's presence in our lives. I mean, last week we celebrated the Immaculate Conception. It's a solemnity. But what we have to be careful about is that we can easily get sucked into the idea of routine, especially for the older folks. How many times in your life have you been at Advent season, Christmases that you've seen? You can get so used to the stories that even when it is being proclaimed to you, you're hearing it, but you're really not understanding it. And someone used the example that life can be like a basin filled with water, and you get something, you keep stirring it in the same circular motion, the water will swirl around in that bucket or whatever container you have in the same motion, and then you take out what you're stirring with and just stare at it. After a while, the water becomes slow, and finally it stops, and the sedentary is just sitting there. If we're not careful, our life of faith can become exactly that, just the motion. And finally, it goes really low, and it dies. That is why, at the very beginning of Advent, last Sunday, the reading started out with being alert, being awake. Get out of your stupor. Be alert to what you are doing. Every one of those seasons, if we pay attention and we celebrate them properly, they always have something new to say to us, something to uplift us, something to draw us closer to God. And I think that Christmas is probably one of the most difficult to pay attention to, because then we get quickly into the idea of trying to get gifts ready, trying to apply to write cards and stuff and make sure they get safely to the places they're going. So life becomes double in sense of things we need to do. We already have busy lives, jobs, family. Then now on top of it, all of this. But Advent actually calls us to slow down. Advent would ask us to pay attention. The similarity between Lent and Advent is not too much. And so we must listen. Every Sunday, we must listen to what the readings speak to us. Be alert, be awake last Sunday. This Sunday, we're looking at John. We're looking at Isaiah. These are 2 great prophets who live 600 years difference, but they're saying the same thing to us. Prepare the way of the Lord. Fill in the valleys. Make smooth the mountains. Prepare the way of the Lord, because the Lord is coming. Jesus was born only once in history as a little child. And we celebrate that at Christmas. We celebrate it always. He would never be born again as a little child. Our creed, our profession of faith says he will come to judge the living and the dead. The next time we see him, he will come as a judge. We do know that he comes to us always in the word that we share, in the Eucharist that we share. Someday the Lord will come for me. And whoever survives me, who's not gone before me, you may get a text message or a phone call and say, did you hear Father John passed? And everybody says, oh my God, what happened? Was he ill? And then 5 minutes later, everything's back to normal. The Lord will come. But the readings of today says we're not sure. That is why we must recall from last Sunday that we have to be alert to these things. We can get so busy that we even mess things up with being busy. Because I remember about 2 years ago, while I was there at Miraculous Meta, somebody had given me a box of chocolate for Christmas. And so I got it, and I was sending out my own little present too. But I didn't look at the box of chocolate properly. I did not understand that underneath it, there was a little note. Merry Christmas, Father John, best wishes for this family. So I packaged it and sent it off to someone else. So they called me later in the evening and said, thank you for the chocolate, but next time look under the box. We need to slow down. We need to focus on what is more important. John and Isaiah, these great prophets, were not afraid to confront their times with the reality of what they see. A message of hope, a message of peace, a message that can bind people together. Isaiah, like Jesus, is come, is gone. John is come, staying out of this community, but accusing everyone. You need to look at yourselves again. Never taking for granted. He did not assume unto himself anything that he was not. Because people started to say, wow, this great prophet. John actually takes on the figure of Elijah, another great prophet from the Old Testament. Because that all his dressing, his asceticism, all of it he took from Elijah. But when you look at the first reading from Isaiah, you look at the gospel reading, both of them started asking us to do the same thing. Prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight his paths. In every life, there are valleys, there are holes in our lives because we're human. We need to fill those. There are mountains of trouble, of problems in front of us, but we need to understand that mountains can move because the power of God is on our side. That is how we prepare for the coming of the Lord. Don't get too carried away with the music, with the bright lights, with the gifts, with the meals. All of those are important. But more important is the Lord who is coming to us. We must be able to evaluate our lives and say, this time last year, second Sunday of Advent, or this last year Christmas, where was I as a person of faith? How have I grown? If I've not grown really, what do I need to do? Those are the things we need as we prepare for the Lord's coming. And if we're doing well, you can never do well enough. There's always more that is to be done. You look at the second reading, letter of St. Peter. He also calls our attention to the fact that the day of the Lord comes like a thief. Before you know it, it dissolves and it is gone. Everything that we do, we must do with the awareness that we are not in control. How then can we be Isaiah? How can we be Elijah? How can we be John? By making sure that in the littlest ways possible, that we make the presence of Christ in the world known. No matter where I am now, especially in this country and in the Western civilization, Europe, US, it will seem that society is beginning to push to see that if you say you're a Christian, it's as if you've committed a crime. And I think many Christians are backing away from that too. Somebody sent me a Christmas card while I was there, and when I opened it, it said Happy Holidays. And I was wondering what holiday. I was not on holidays. I was in school at Duquesne. I was working full-time. So what holiday are you talking about? As a baptized Christian, as a Catholic, as a priest, if you wish me a Merry Christmas, I understand exactly what you're talking about. And I see that we try to juggle all of that. How then can we make straight the paths of the Lord if we're becoming political about everything? Have the courage, even at our desk at work, you get to work, make the sign of the cross, say a little prayer before you start work. Because we're too embarrassed, people think we're religious freaks. Okay, I like that tag, give it to me, I'll wear it proudly. But it is our witnessing that prepares the way of the Lord. Because this is the Lord who proclaims peace to his people. Don't we need peace with all that is going on around us? Why is it that modern man is afraid to look at the one who says we should love, that we should be brothers and sisters? How come that becomes a problem? You are Elijah. You are Elisha. You're Isaiah. You're John. You're not Christ. But you represent him. By the time we come to Christmas, and before we know it, because time goes quickly, all the trees are coming down again before you know it. All the boxes are going back into the space they were last year, and maybe they've been since 30 years ago. And life continues. Will you be able to answer the first two questions of the 2 Sundays we've had in Advent? Are you awake? Are you alert to the seriousness of your call and vocation? Are you preparing the way of the Lord to come to you as a person before you prepare the way of the Lord to go out to others? Reflect on those questions for today. Amen.